Today we are doing roofs. Yes, I know it's not much to look at what's behind me. It's just like basic patterns, basic shapes. So I'm going to take this building that I'm doing for a project, right? And I'm going to add a roof to it, right? So I'm basically killing two birds, one stone. Let's get to the planning phase. So usually, with a roof, there's a few ways you can do it. You can have a curved, you can have a slight bump, you can have a sharp point, or you can just do the classic look of a roof, or you could just do a shack kind of roof, or you could always go flat. And then there's Mr. Nose. So, as I always recommend, it takes a little bit of experimentation before anything happens, of course. So, take a look at your build and think, what kind of roof would work? So I'm thinking taking the shack roof and also taking that roof and combining it slightly. When building a roof, you usually want to get your plan down, right? Like this. And if you like the shape of the roof, personally, I don't know how to feel about it, but of course, you can always do better. This is a basic example, and I'm gonna probably replace the blocks I'm using. When you're doing a roof, usually, in some cases, you want to make it have a little bit of a lip, right? There's like a little bit of an under portion. A lot of buildings actually have it. I will show some examples here. But pretty much, once you have these little lips that go on the outside, it both gives your roof a better shape than it already did, and it actually makes it look slightly better. Some cases you might want to add an extra block, you know, like that. And then you got that shape. It's not much to look at, still got to put in that, but pretty much your roof might go from this to something that looks a little more like this. I know it's not much to look at, but roofs are genuinely one of those things, right? With this building, I've gone with the shack kind of roof. But for example, with builds like this, you might end up going with a more curved roof, where you have a more of a slant, more of a witch hat, if you please. And a lot of the times when you're doing roofs, take inspiration from sources, like for example this, or this, or this, or this. It's just, do a lot of research on how roofs are constructed, and then you will see there's a pattern. Some roofs end up like this, with a curve. Some end up like a bit of a witch hat. Some end up being slants. Some might just end up being very flat. Some are just very pointy. And others, well, they have windows. And I'll say this, for this one, if you wanted to add a window, you would need to make it bigger. I know. That's the most useless mention ever of adding a window. But basically, once you have your roof, now it's just a matter of making it connect to the rest of the building. So in a lot of cases, you would do something like this. You use a different block, and then you use this one to extend out the roof a little bit, just a little bit. And then you do that. I know it's not much. Also, hello, demonic horse. I want to go live up there by the mighty horse in the sky. Also, I think he's possessed. He's possessed by the mimic. Not the mimic, the ripple. He is possessed by the ripple. I know it's you. You can't trick me. Anyways, my worst enemy, the demonic horse from my survival series. Anyways, this is how your roof might end up looking, for example. And a lot of the times, hey, that's good. Maybe you like that. But other times, you don't like it. What do you do then? Maybe try doing this. Set it in a little bit. Not a lot, just barely enough. Just barely put it in. And then maybe you can use this block now. Or instead, use a different block. One that matches with the actual wall. But what I'm saying is, basically, you might want to try a couple roofs. Like maybe this doesn't look good to you, right? So, try a few different types of roofs. Maybe it would look better with a bit of a bump. Maybe it would look better with a sharper tip. Maybe it would look better if it was the default roof. It's just a lot of experimentation. And remember, when you're building, don't just give up. Don't just give up on your build. Don't ignore it. Don't skip it. Just remember, the only reason I've gotten to this point of building is because, well, every single time I've built something, I lost the world. So I rebuilt it. And if someone blows up your base, for example, just rebuild it. The best way to explain that is, every time you build something, you can make minor adjustments to how it looks. For example, with this one, I don't really like how the top bit looks. So I adjust it, right? Now it looks much better than it did originally. And I probably want to change how this roof looks. So, let's get on to it. When it comes to picking the exact block, you gotta think about the theme. For example, maybe it's cyberpunk. Then your roof would just be another building. Or if it's something else like, for example, Western. It might be a lot more wooden. A lot more dry. If you have any questions, comment it down below. And yeah, I will answer it to my best of the abilities. I'll even make a Q&A video if you want. I answer as many comments as I can if I have more than a lot. Which I don't, so it's going to be easy for me. And there you go. Then you got a roof, right? It's simplistic. I changed the color. I chose one that was more suited to the style, which was Western. This is a Western steampunk build, which means I'm going to have to later add some steampunk, details to the rest of the build. But for now, this is fine. I'm showing you how to this. And now it's for the more fun part, in my opinion. It's the detail. Because currently, it's all one solid color. Which, of course, as you know from my last video, if you watched it, that's a no-no. Because then you end up having shots like this. Sometimes it's fine, but for this one, I think it would be better to add a little detail like this, for example. To add a little bit of detail like this. I know it's not a lot, but that's already breaking up the texture decently a lot. And it adds a bit of a lip to the shape. Or you could add some detail like that, where you got a bunch of trapdoors, and it breaks up the shape and color, right? And it adds an extra little bump. Now, this is the most detailed I think I could get this roof. I might replace, and that's the roof. It's simplistic, and I will probably show you real fast, if I did a roof that was different, how you would do other things, like adding a window, right? So, bam. Now with this one, with the window one, you're probably gonna need to break that many blocks. Of course, when you're doing the window, you probably want to check where your room would sit, right? Compared to the bottom half. But because I'm just showing you how to do the window, it's a bit easier, right? Bam. Now that I've got this stage, you probably want to add things like this. To make it have a bit more of a lip, right? And I would probably fill that in. And eventually your roof should start looking a little like this. It's not much to look at, but you gotta remember, this is going to still need its details. There's a lot of ways to do roofs. This is just a decently easy way. It's a lot of experimentation. And then once you're done, and you've got the roof, right? You're gonna do your windows, which you gotta remember how to do that. I know it's not a lot to look at, but you'll understand in a second why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. There we go. And the reason I did it the way I did it is so that this part would make it look like it's actually more, you know, flat. There's probably better ways to do it, right? And there's better blocks you can choose to do it, but this is just how I chose to do it because it's pretty simplistic. Hell, you could add more detail like doing this. And then you got more of a boxy shape. But that doesn't really matter. I didn't do it that way, but there's lots of ways to do windows. All you needed to know was basically when doing this kind of roof, there's a bit of a bump. And when you're digging a hole, you probably want it 1 block taller than I did it. But pretty much that's how you do it. Hell, you could even do the roof like this, which is not as good looking in my opinion, but it's still decent. Right? And then I'll show you a trick when it comes to doing tall, pointy witch hats, and also this, right? When you're doing a roof, usually the tip ends up looking like this. It's a bit of a weird wrench shape. It is guaranteed that this would look like this, and that's not how you usually start. You start from the bottom usually, but I find it a lot easier to start around the middle. So when you're doing this, you want to add probably something like this, because as you go down, that little nudge would get shorter, but at the same time, it would get longer. It's just management. Once you got that shape, you do something like this. I messed that up. You would have something that looks a little like this. And once you have to this stage, now you just need to connect these corners, which that's where these come in handy again. It's just pretty much a rinse and repeat cycle until you've got a very nice pointy tip of roof. And usually this is where it changes, or you could stretch this out. I made it a little small. But pretty much it's just a rinse and repeat cycle until you've got a nice pointy tipped roof. And there's 2 ways to do this top bit. Right? There's the classic pointed part, and if you're doing a bit of a different kind of build, like for example, you're doing something with a pointed tip but a flat top. I don't know why some buildings actually have that, but basically it gives you easy roof access. But pretty much with this one, the main pattern on the tipped roof is usually something like this. The wrench shape. That shape is very important. If you're doing a tipped roof and the wrench shape doesn't even show up once, you're not doing it right. Probably with bigger builds, it's like it still ends up with the tip part, but you still always at least get the wrench part once in the bigger ones. With this one, the main shape is Mr. Schnoz over there, right? It's a matter of you have your top bit, you got the part that connects it, and then you got the part where the window actually is, which of course is roughly a little there. And then it goes back to being a schnoz. But sometimes if your roof is your window's a little lower, it might end up like this a little more. And then this is where it ends. But usually, you get a schnoz, or a crab claw. One of the 2. I like to think of it as a schnoz. And if you have any more questions, I will make a follow-up video about the roofs. Yeah. I can even show you how to make an even version of this one if you want it. Because that one's a bit of a iffy subject, in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. And thank you so much for commenting on the last video. I will be adding your names to the board. I'm going to make an entire board here. I'll actually set that up really fast. Yes. Thank you all for commenting and everything. And I'm gonna be honest, I was silly. I forgot that, you know, I accidentally did the thumbnail wrong. I didn't even realize until some of you pointed out. I thank you so much. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. I am grateful beyond words, man. I'm grateful. Even just the slightest amount of human communication is amazing. Thank you so much. And please, please, I hope you enjoyed. If you're watching this one, but pretty much roofs are simple. They're not that complicated, but a lot of people struggle with them because a lot of people end up making them, well, like that. Which it works, but with a lot of builds it doesn't. Until we meet again, bye-bye.